Novak Djokovic is very close to a gold medal.
Serve straight at Djokovic. Backhand return is deep on the line. Welcoming listeners from talkSPORT as Novak Djokovic, with a forehand winner, has won the Olympic gold medal. It is a golden slam for Novak Djokovic. It can sit along with all of his Grand Slam singles titles, the 10 Australian Opens, the 3 French Opens, the 7 Wimbledons and the 4 US Opens, have company in the trophy cabinet. He takes the applause of court Philippe Chatrier and falls to his knees on the famous clay, because the man who had done it all has completed the lot. It is a gold medal for Novak Djokovic, who is in tears, on his knees, in the centre of the court. Perhaps the greatest player we have ever seen has done something quite extraordinary once again in an extraordinary gold medal match against Carlos Alcaraz. He's won it in straight sets, but it was anything but straightforward. It finishes 7-6, 7-6. Novak Djokovic has won the gold medal.
Well, is there anything that man cannot do? We have our pictures right now of Novak sitting on his chair. He's got his towel over his head. This was his priority in 2024. Joe Shannon mentioned all the Grand Slam titles that he's picked up, 24, which, of course, is more than any other man, and only Margaret Court, level on 24, has won as many as him. Of course, he wants to go one better than that, but what he really wanted was Olympic gold, and that's exactly, Scott Minto, what he's got.
Absolutely, and just looking at him, it's almost like he's won his first Grand Slam. You know, he said beforehand, didn't he, it was all about, this would be his biggest achievement if he was able to win the Olympics. And when you think about it, it was only a couple of months ago, in fact, less than a couple of months ago, Wimbledon, and he wasn't 100% fit, but Carlos Alcaraz he blitzed him, didn't he, in straight sets?
Well, he did.
That's a comeback.
Obviously, Djokovic picked up an injury in Paris during the French Open, and at that stage, people were saying he's not going to play Wimbledon. He might not even play the Olympics. The fact that he got to the final at Wimbledon, and when he was struggling to a degree, was pretty remarkable. And let's not underestimate Carlos Alcaraz, who's an astonishing talent at such a young age. But, I mean, Djokovic's records, Scott, are extraordinary. He's climbing up now through the crowd. He's going to head up to his box. A lot of changes in his box at the start of this year. You know, he was not winning titles, has not won a title up until today. But that's kind of the mark of the man, that the one he wanted is the one he's gone and won. And I mean, I think this warrants a question that we'd like you to answer out there. You can get in touch with us, the usual number, 831089. No, wait, that is the right number. 1089. How can I forget these basic things? Get in touch with us. Where does Novak Djokovic rank as a tennis player and as a sportsman? Don't forget, he has got the 24 slams. In terms of his head-to-head record against the big three that he has competed with throughout his career, he's got a 31-29 winning record over Rafael Nadal, a 27-23 winning record against Roger Federer, and a 25-11 winning record against Andy Murray. He's won Davis Cups. He's won everything. Now he's got the Olympic gold. I think you've got to put him down without question, for me anyway, as the greatest of all time.
I was going to say, you answer your own question there. He is the greatest?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt. I mean, listen, tennis is very tribal, and you'll get some Federer fans on and some Nadal fans on, and they will dispute that. And I guess you could argue that maybe he's benefited slightly towards the end of his career from being still supremely strong and fit, as Nadal has dipped away.
Yeah, but how old is he? A
little bit older. He's 38. He's actually the same age within a week as Andy Murray.
Right, so to you know, again, that's all part of it. The fact that your body, whether you're genetically blessed or whether you've looked after yourself, and it's probably both.
Yes.
The fact that he's still able to do that, whereas the others aren't, again, is another facet towards that makes you, whether you're the greatest or not. And the bottom line is, you read out those stats. I mean, I still think, you know, I'm not really a data-driven person, but in terms of slams, he's won the most slams. But the fact of the head-to-head, I think that tells it all. I personally love Roger Federer. I think, you know, watching him, poetry in motion. but he's got a better head-to-head record than him, and he's won more slams than him.
Yeah.
I think that says it all, doesn't it?
I mean, Federer fans might say, well, because of the changing of the guard, Roger lost some of his power towards the end of his career, and that's why Novak was able to take over and dominated their head-to-head rivalry towards the end of Federer's career.
What do you mean by the changing of the guard?
Well, the fact that Federer was that much older, so his power started to wane as Djokovic was still in his prime, because Federer's, 42, so he's about 5 years older.
But then he obviously then started earlier, didn't he?
Exactly right. So these arguments can go backwards and forwards. Ultimately, I would agree with you. I think in tennis you have to look at the figures first and foremost. The number of weeks at number one, the slams, now the gold medal. It's so
why has he not been as popular as the other two?
That's the great question. I mean, I think, as you rightly said, you look at Roger Federer, he was effortless. It looked like he was floating over the court, charming, would always give great interviews. And to be fair to Novak Djokovic, I think he gives very good interviews as well, and he's a terrific loser when he does lose, as we saw at Wimbledon a few weeks ago. There have been issues, his stand on the whole vaccine situation ruffled some people's feathers, others admired his honesty. So you've got to take anybody, warts and all, haven't you? And I think Federer just had that sort of charm, that natural charm that won a lot of people over. Rafa had the fighting instincts that others loved. So it's always going to be difficult for Novak to get that same love and respect. But I think that's driven him to become even more successful than both of them.
I think you're right. I think he's almost been a little bit hurt. And who did he play in Wimbledon where he came out and said he thought that the fans
the crowd were booing him?
Yeah. I actually think that was the wrong thing to say. But at the same time, they wouldn't have done that if Federer was playing.
No.
Against the same opponent, or even Nadal was playing against the same opponent. So I don't think he's totally wrong in what he's saying. I just don't think he needed to say it.
Well, you could argue that he read the room wrong on that occasion, but I think also he wanted to pep himself up, and there have been countless occasions when he's had to deal with the roars of the crowd for his opponent. I've been lucky enough to be at a few US Open finals when you get 25,000 people inside the Arthur Ashe Stadium court, and 24,500 of them are cheering for Roger Federer. and he finds a way to put that to one side. You know what it's like on a football pitch sometimes. You don't mind being sort of the villain almost. I think some players actually emerge as an even stronger force when that happens, and he has definitely used that to his advantage.
Look, I mean, when I was playing, and obviously I played in a team sport, so you could rely on others. I actually felt more pressure playing at home because you're playing in front of your home fans, but I also felt that I needed to do more and did play better at home because of that pressure. Whereas away from home, it's a psychological kind of, well, let's just sit back and see how it goes, and maybe you don't quite put the same amount of, because it's more of a tactical or a technical position that you need to be in. Let's make sure we keep the crowd quiet. Let's first 20 minutes. So just sit in there. But in an individual sport, and you have got 95% of the crowd against you, that's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough. So for him to show that mental resilience where everyone's cheering for the other guy, and you could easily throw your toys out the pram, to say, no, I'm going to actually use this as a power for me, that shows a special type of mentality.
Absolutely. Where does Novak Djokovic rank as a tennis player and as a sportsman? You can call us 03717 223344. That's 03717 223344. And you can text us as well. It's 81089. I'm going to have that engraved on my wrist. 81089. Where do you see Novak in terms of the overall greats? If you're a Federer fan or a Nadal fan, a Murray fan, are you able now to at least admit that what he's achieved, his body of work, warrants the title greatest of all time? We'd love to hear from you. 03717 223344, and you can text us 81089. Novak Djokovic, Olympic gold medalist. Carlos Alcaraz with the silver. The brutal thing about tennis, of course, Scott, is that they'll go straight on. There's a Masters event starting in Canada this week. They have another one in Cincinnati. They've got the US Open just around the corner, and it would be no great surprise to see those two in the final again there. And I think the thing for Novak as well, the fact that these great players were competing at the same time, they were pushing each other. You need that, don't you?
Like Messi, Ronaldo.
Exactly. And he now, of course, okay, I've got the gold. You're never satisfied. I now need that 25th Grand Slam title.
And do you think it's a good thing or a not so good thing that Alcaraz is kind of on, and there could be this kind of, and I don't know how long it's going to be for, And what's your opinion how long he can go on for Djokovic? But, will that give him that kind of, right, I've got this new rival again, I've got to try even harder? Or would it be, do you know what, I wish he wasn't around, I'll get my 25th and move on.
I think he likes the fact that these youngsters, and there's Yannick Sinner, we mustn't forget Yannick Sinner is the world number one, and unfortunately had to miss out on the Olympics because of illness. But he needs those guys constantly pushing at him so that he can say, hang on, youngsters, just wait a little while, I'm not finished yet. And obviously his body, it's not exactly breaking down. He's had some twinges, but unless he's had enough, mentally, I don't see why he can't go on for
it doesn't look like he's had enough mentally, does it?
No.
And again, from what happened at Wimbledon, for him to do that such a short space afterwards against the same direct opponent, albeit on a different surface, but I'm not quite sure Alcaraz is better on grass or clay. You'd probably know more than me, but again, that shows the mentality of an elite sportsman.
Yeah, well, I mean, the beautiful thing, I think, for Alcaraz is that he can play on any surface, so can Djokovic. And the one thing, Scott, that's changed in the tennis world is that there isn't the great differences on the surfaces. In the old days, grass was unique, and a lot of the Spanish players in particular didn't come and play at Wimbledon. They were clay court specialists, but now the courts are pretty similar, which in many ways has actually helped, because it means that you don't have, Nadal's the exception there because he's won 14 French Open titles on the clay, but now most of the top guys can compete on all the surfaces, so you're guaranteed box office battles irrespective of the tournament.
They don't have to aim for one specific and say, do you know what, I may not think about Wimbledon, I'll concentrate on Paris and the clay, or vice versa kind of thing, because it is all almost an equal opportunity.
Well, it is. I mean, the brutal side of it, though, I mean, every sport is incredibly challenging. I think tennis has to be right up there because it's constant. You've got the Australian Open in January. You effectively play right through until the World Tour finals in November. And then more often than not, there are one or two lucrative exhibition matches that, of course, the players shouldn't be doing it, but they're not going to turn those down. So it's that almost constant grind, and then knowing, and where Federer was great, he knew how to schedule himself. And that's another key part of what Djokovic has done as well. You can't keep playing every week now. He just gears himself up for the slams, for the Olympics, and it's working.
I just think, listen, anyone like a Messi, like a Ronaldo are, some of the best sportsmen this planet has ever produced, but there's something unique about an individual sport where it's all on you, and if you have a bad day, you're out. Yeah. And from a physical point of view, to go through the rounds, and you can be tired when it comes to the final, but no, that's when they produce their best. Yeah. And that's when again, I go back to the elite. That's when they really come at it, when it really, really matters. And the big points, going for it rather than just staying in the point.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, just while we're on this subject, it's a team sport, but do you like your basketball?
I don't watch a lot of it, I've got to be honest. Loved the Chicago Bulls back in the day with Michael Jordan.
That's it.
Obviously, a wonderful documentary.
I have been watching The Last Dance, and Brilliant. I've been told for the last 2 or 3 years, you've got to watch this. And then, funnily enough, I've been doing a bit of basketball work at the Olympics, so I thought before that I'm going to watch. What an amazing documentary it is.
Amazing.
And Michael Jordan within a team, but sort of the man. I know there was Scottie Pippen, there were 2 or 3 others who were key elements to their success, but the way he drove the Bulls for so many years, I find that. I'd put him on the same sort of pedestal, because his individual brilliance really did shine through in a team environment.
Absolutely, and I'd probably put Kobe Bryant in there as well. I haven't seen enough about LeBron James, and they talk about those two being the best, LeBron James and Michael Jordan. For me, Michael Jordan's the number 1, Kobe Bryant number 2. I don't know enough about basketball to argue that case, but again, the mentality. You know that if Michael Jordan was in an individual sport, he probably would have preferred it, because he can only rely on himself, and he was having to rely on others. But to the way he was in training, the way sometimes he bullied his teammates, he didn't mean anything detrimental to it. Was he a nice guy? I don't know. Probably not, or not from a professional point of view. But he was a winner. He was a mindset winner. And I don't know why, and I'm trying not to use the name, but I'll just chuck it out there anyway, because he's very young. But Jude Bellingham, I think, has a similar mindset. Yeah, I do. And to the point where it's like, I don't care if you don't like me or what I say. And he does need to be careful from a media point of view, but I've got a winner's mindset, and
I
you're either with me or you're not.
I can see that. I mean, yeah, the fact Jordan, what comes through in that last dance is, of course, he wanted to win every basketball game he played, but if he went onto the golf course, he had to win that. Whatever he did, I mean, it must have been exhausting. It must be exhausting to be Michael Jordan, where whatever you're doing, you've got to win. I think Andy Murray's a little bit like that as well.
Well, I think those type of people, I don't know if it's exhausting, because I think that's who you are. That's in your DNA. What I do think they then find difficult is when they're not playing it. And it's going to be interesting to see what Andy Murray, for example, does do, you know, whether he stays in tennis, whether he chills out. I think he's got 4 young kids, hasn't he? So he's certainly got his hands tied up at home, but he'll get bored and he'll want to do something, because when you've had that mindset where you're constantly waking up and pushing yourself to the point where you're pushing yourself more than others would, and that's why it's making you the world-class athlete that you are, to suddenly not do that, that's hard mentally.
Yeah. Well, Murray has said that his 2 targets now that he's retired are to be a very good father and family figure, which I'm sure he will be, and also to become a scratch golfer. And
he probably will.
With his driven mindset.
He probably will.
He will. I mean, Tim Henman, he's one of those annoying people that's good at everything. He's about +2 or +3.
Is he?
So I can see a few years down the road, Murray and Henman getting involved in some fantastic battles on.
A few of the lads I went in Tenerife think they can get down to scratch. No, they can't.
Not Crookie, that's for sure.
Definitely not Crookie.
More chance of a singing career, hasn't he, than getting down into single figures.
I think he has, actually.
He sounded all right a little earlier. Lots of respect being shown by you for Djokovic. Here's one. I'm a Novak fan, have been for years. Novak deserves great respect for his professionalism. I saw him at the Laver Cup in London. Post-match, he went on to do lots of practice, hence the player he is today. I'm absolutely delighted with his gold medal, and I think that's a sentiment that will be echoed by many. A remarkable performance from Novak Djokovic. He's beaten Carlos Alcaraz in a high-quality Olympic final in 2 tie-break sets. Elsewhere in the Olympics, 20-year-old Team GB gymnast Harry Hepworth has won bronze in the men's vault. Jake Jarman finished 4th. There's more live Olympic coverage right now over on talkSPORT 2.